Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Moger.
It's the dozen days before baseball edition of Facebook Live. In 12 short days, Tom, the boys of summer return to the diamond.
Yay! I don't know what else to say. I don't watch baseball.
And I'm Charlie Moger, carrying Tom through another show.
Because you have bats behind your head.
I do. We'll have an Altuve. It's going to be an Altuve-sized season this year, 60 games. But you know what? 60 is better than no games, so that'll be good. And frankly, my understanding is a short season favors the Astros. But we'll talk baseball. If you want to hear that, you have to go to Sports Radio 610, where you hear Tom broadcast every Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, every Saturday and Sunday. Saturday 9 to 12 and Sunday 8 to 11.
And we get together here on Thursday morning to answer the questions you send us at HomeShowRadio.com using the Ask Tom form. And we are, of course, joined by some of select members of Tom's Home Show Pros. This morning, we'll be joined by Kenny Dutton, who will be joining us in just a few minutes from Due West Foundation Repair to talk about all things foundation. So that'll be fun. So let's get right to the questions here, Tom, so we can get to Kenny. First question this morning comes from, comes from Jerry in West Houston. And he says, I have a tankless water heater and flush it out with vinegar twice a year. If I get a water softener, will I still have to flush out the water heater?
I wouldn't bother, because that's the whole point of getting a water softener, is to take care of your equipment in your home, as well as some other things when you're bathing and doing your clothes and washing your hair if you have any. It does help quite a bit as far as that goes. It makes everything clean, and it rinses the soap off, and it rinses, there's no hard water deposits, because the water softener, if it's a good one, is going to take care of all your calcium deposits. So I wouldn't bother flushing it with vinegar at all once you get a good water softener, but get a good one. Aquatex, you can go and look at the Kinetico line like I have. You're not going to have any problems, and it's going to be nice and soft, and you won't have any of those deposits. If you don't have them, you don't have to wash them.
You know, Tom talks about that Kinetico one, and one of the benefits of that thing is it doesn't use as much salt, because instead of using a timer, it uses a meter and works off your water consumption. And so,
I find that fascinating. It works off gears. The gears turn, and when they get to a point, they regenerate.
Why wouldn't everybody do it that way? So hard to say. All right. Next question we have.
Probably a patent with the U.S. government, but that's okay.
That's true. That's why you can't steal our mojo. All right. Next question. We go to Granby, Colorado. And Joseph says, thanks to you, I now turn off my water anytime I leave my home for more than a day. How should I turn it back on? Do I need to turn, he asks, Tom, all the water in the house on and leave it running to get the air out, or just turn the main off when I go and turn it on when I get back?
I love it. Said, how do I turn it off, but how do I turn it back on? Just go opposite. And you can turn it back on. Now, I'm being mean. I shouldn't be mean. No, just leave everything off. I don't want you to open any valves. Keep all the valves closed. Turn it on. It'll spit some air. Don't worry about it. Air is not going to get in your line. If you had air in your line, you'd have water coming out somewhere. You'd have a huge mess. And then if you were in Houston, you'd call Rouse Restoration to clean up the mess. But as far as that goes, just turn it on and go back to living.
When you turn the water, if he were to turn the faucets on and turn the water on, was it possible that he get some? Isn't that where a water hammer comes or whatever? Isn't that where those cause that?
Yes. Yeah, a water hammer could happen if your risers get full of water, and that's what happens when you don't pressurize your system first.
All right. Next question comes to us from Tom in West Houston, and he's getting a familiar email, Tom. He says, I received a notice from CenterPoint about an insurance policy for a homeowner's water heater. He'd appreciate your thoughts on these pros and cons of getting insurance on these.
I don't think anybody needs insurance on a water heater. I've never needed insurance on a water heater. I'm 62 years old now. Not going to buy any insurance for a water heater, so I don't really think it's worth the money. When the time comes you need a new water heater, you buy a new water heater. But as far as the insurance goes, if you had a problem with your water heater and it flooded your house, we'll go back to Rouse Restoration we just talked about. They'll come and clean up the mess, and that's all covered by your homeowner's insurance. And then you're going to have to buy a new water heater. But to spend money every month to buy something you might have to buy someday doesn't make sense.
Well, I did the research. I read the policy because Tom sent it along. I was going to show it, but I decided it probably, didn't want to pick a fight with Centerpoint. Figure they're bigger than us. But anyway, the policy, is like $8 or $9 a month. But so let's just round it off, say $10 a month. It only provides $1,100 in coverage per incident, Tom. So I'm not sure that the math's going to work on that, because if a water heater lasts, 8-10 years?
I'd say 10 to 13 years without a water softener.
Right.
We go back to our previous call about water softeners and his on-demand, and I don't know how it's going to cover an on-demand. I'd have to look at the fine print. But as far as that goes, my water heater, I have a tanked water heater that's 22 years old. So if I'd have been spending that money for 22 years, it would be a lot of money.
I'm thinking the insurance guy's coming out ahead on this deal. So, all right.
Well, but if you have an incident where it floods your house, you have homeowner's insurance. They cover the damage.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So let's those are questions we got from you, but we got questions about foundation piling up, and for that we brought one of our home show pros in. Kenny Dutton from Due West Foundation Repair. We're going to scroll down here on the homepage. You can see where there it is, the Due West button. You click on that and it opens up their page, and it gives you Kenny Dutton from Due West Foundation Repair. Good morning, Kenny. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Charlie and Tom. How are y'all doing?
Hey, Kenny. Good. Thank you.
Right. We have a whole bunch of questions waiting for you here, Kenny. But by way of introduction, Kenny is of course of the Due West family. I guess you guys have third generation working in there yet?
Yes. Yeah, we have third generation engineers working for that are third generation now.
That's great. And
they're family members?
Yes.
You bred engineers? Oh,
well,
my gosh.
We had to. We had to breed some common sense into them.
Yeah.
Come on, you've worked with engineers before.
Well, now you started a long time. I mean, Due West started way back. I'll tell you, we'll talk about that more at the very end. Okay, we'll cover more of that. But what's important about Due West is that you guys really changed foundation repair. I mean, with really bringing the driven pile system, making it something that everyone started adopting because of the way you were doing it.
Well, exactly. A lot of people don't realize when we started out, we started off as a general contractor. We did just about any project that came down the pike. And we did foundation repair and underpinning along with the general contracting we were doing. And we were using drilled piers like pretty much everybody else in the industry. And my father ran across an engineer named Gene Wilcox that had the idea of using sectional pressed piling in the ground underneath residential structures. And my father's background was heavy construction throughout his lifetime, working on large municipal projects and large buildings and tunneling and such. He knew how friction-bearing piles worked, and when he ran across this engineer, Gene Wilcox, and had the idea of putting these in the ground, he said that's going to change the industry, and we got busy and working on how to actually install them. The engineer didn't have a practical way of putting them in the ground, and that's what we worked out, is how to get them in the ground in a manner that you could actually do projects and move from one to the other in a timely fashion, and it's just really changed the industry. We opened up a foundation repair school and taught 17 other companies how to drive pressed piles, because with a new system out there, we didn't want it to come into the industry and have other companies try to copy it and do it wrong and give it a bad name. But we did patent a few things that we don't allow other companies to do. The jetting at the base of the piling to get deeper penetration, continuous steel reinforcement, or any type of reinforcement put in after the piling's driven. We patented those things so that we could keep a little notch above everybody.
And you were instrumental. Meeting
Gene Wilcox, I really did, and I remember when you guys were just developing all this and starting out. Your dad and your family took a real beating from the industry for a while about how this was all crazy, ludicrous, it's never going to work. Pilings come up in people's bathrooms. I remember seeing all these ridiculous sketches and things. So you guys really stuck to it and made it work.
We did, and you know, it worked so well for us. Everybody knows us for foundation repair now, and that's a big part of our business now. It's really changed the industry to where in Texas, probably about 80% of the underpinning done now is with the friction-bearing pile, which we developed the installation process for and worked hard to get it there.
Well, let's get to some of the questions we've got from folks who've been sent them into our Ask Tom section at HomeShowRadio.com, Kenny. First one comes from Jenny in Spring. She says, we're purchasing a home and just had the inspection, and there are exposed tension rods all along the foundation, and some are rusted. The inspector said they need to be covered because if they keep rusting, they'll snap and cause problems with the foundation. How's this done, and what happens if this gets put off, Kenny?
Well, and tension rods would be post-tension cables. Newer type of slabs. Well, I say newer since the late 70s, and the ones that are built in 90s and newer are much better than the ones that were built prior to then. But it's probably the end caps, the ends of the cables that's getting exposed and rusting. And it's just a matter of having someone wire brush off the rust off of them. They can coat it with a little bit of anti-rust material, and then just put a non-shrink grout over it to cap the hole again. And it's a real simple process, but it's fairly important. You don't want that cable is actually pulled to tension after the slab is poured, and it's with it under tension. If it rusts too much and that nut gives way at the end of it, it can pop the cable loose and it can snap up through the slab on the interior of the home. And it's pretty loud when it does it. But it's a real simple process on maintaining it. Clean the rust off of it, and really a non-shrink grout over it is what most people do.
It's an important part of the building process that somebody takes a look at the details of a house and does all that before the homeowners move in. It always astounds me that little things like that are just left to do what it does. Yeah.
All right, our next question comes from Jim in Katy, Kenny. He says, my 20-year-old house has a post-tension slab. He says, I'm seeing cracks staggered following the sheetrock seams and cracks in ceramic tile in the same area, and they seem to be getting worse. He says, I inspected outside and found no obvious signs of foundation issues. How can I be sure it's safe to do the sheetrock and tile repairs, or could it be that I really have a foundation problem?
Well, the only way to be sure if it's not a foundation problem is to have somebody come out and take a look at it. Some of the telltale signs are already there, the cracks showing up in the sheetrock. But if it's just following seams and joints, there's a lot more chance it's not a foundation problem. And tiles popping up a lot of times can be moisture related, where wood expands in the house with moisture and pushes on the tile if it was poured right, or tile was set right up against the wood walls in there. But going outside looking for signs, a lot of people look for cracks in a slab and cracks in the brick. The interesting things with these new slabs that are this home's 20 years old, so it's built with a waffle pattern slab, most likely if it's tract home builder. It's a much more rigid slab than what we had years ago. So they tend to not get as much deflection, which causes a lot of the big cracks in the brick and the crack in the foundation that everybody's used to seeing. These things will tend to tilt more before we get an actual cracking situation showing up. So sometimes we've got to look closer to see if there's something going on with it. But I'm a big fan of having someone come out and take a look at it just to be sure. And it needs to be a legitimate company that's not out to just sell them something. There's fly-by-night companies out there that'll say, yes, you have a problem. And, we're one of the companies that are out real good about coming in and saying yes or no, it needs foundation repair. And if we look at it, we may give them some preventative tips instead of saying you need foundation repair, possibly watering, irrigation systems, root barriers, things like that, to avoid having a foundation problem in the future with it.
Kenny, people ask me all the time, how do I know I need foundation repair? And I say exactly what you say. Call somebody to come out and take a look. If you're going to be coming out to do that for someone, Is there a charge? How long does it take? Can you give some people some advice? What happens when you actually come out to actually evaluate a situation?
If I'm in a municipal area where we have an office, typically it's free to come out and take a look at it. It doesn't cost anything for us to come and look at it. And it normally takes between 1 and 2 hours for us to go through the whole thing. It's not something where we're just going to run through in a couple minutes and look at it. Normally we'll set up, take elevation readings on it, and then look for signs throughout the home that homeowners may miss, particularly on these younger homes. We can get foundation movement on those that do not show as plainly as the older homes. So it does take someone with some experience to come in and look at them. So it'll take us between 1 to 2 hours. We'll get a drawing, elevation readings, go over everything ourselves with it, and normally my estimators are calling back in to me or my brother to actually go over what they're seeing on the home also, so we get a second set of eyes. Technology's wonderful, just like we're using here today. We use the same thing when we're evaluating a home. We get 2 opinions on it while we're out there at the house, rather than just someone coming quick in and out on it.
Our last question for you we got this morning, Kenny, comes from Robert in Spring. He says, we have a beautiful pine tree next to our home, and the trunk's about 30 inches and maybe 2 feet from the slab. I want to keep it if it's sensible, he says, but there's no signs of any slab issues I can see, but I want to know, should I take it out? Should I keep it? What do you say?
When they're very close to the house like that, they're darned if you do and darned if you don't with them. Normally what we see, if a tree is younger than a home and the soils were not acclimated to the tree being there when the home was built, as that tree matures, it's drawing moisture out of the ground. The soil around there will typically shrink as it dries out and go downward. If that tree is older than the house, the soils were acclimated to that tree drawing moisture before the house was built. If you take that tree out later on, those soils may want to heave and come upward and heave that side of the house upward. When it's within 30 inches of the home that way, a pine tree isn't a big foundation problem type of tree. Normally what we look for foundation wise is how much water does a tree really draw per day. An oak tree draws, hundreds of gallons of water a day, a mature oak tree. A pine tree doesn't draw a lot of water, has very small needles that it's feeding with moisture. But the issue I'll see with pine trees is more of a nesting of the roots under a foundation. As those roots grow, they may push parts of it up. This is a real concern in the spring area in particular on the older homes, not the younger ones. The older homes were built with thinner slabs there, and they tend to push up easily. My recommendation on a tree that's that close, if you're not seeing an issue with it yet, if you like the tree, you can leave it there. You can remove it if you want. But when they're that close to the house, you're going to probably see more issues with it than foundation issues. It's going to start causing issues with the roof, issues with the fascia on the side of it, because it's just so close. It's going to be damaging other factors of the home rather than just the foundation. So it may be a case of removal because of that.
Have you ever seen a pine tree snap and come down on somebody's house? It can kill you.
Yes.
If it's that close. And I remember God gave us pine trees for one thing: 2x4s to build you a house. And that's why we have farms of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really, and I know the foundation is an issue, and it does have a big tap root, and it's a little different than an oak or something of that nature. But man, they are dangerous. So
wait a minute.
Be careful.
Whoa. I thought God gave us pine trees for pine tar for baseball. That's
no.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Charlie, do you make a baseball bat out of pine?
Oh, for God's sake, no.
They snap.
Yeah. Well, it depends what kind of show we're trying to put on, right, Kenny? It's like we use a pine baseball bat. We're going to have quite a show. So, hey, one of the things you didn't mention earlier, Kenny, when we first started, was the role your family played in the formation of the Foundation Repair Association of Texas. I mean, you guys have been instrumental in the growth of that organization.
Well, Foundation Repair Association started in Dallas, and we became members the first year it formed up there, and it was a good thing. It was, before the Foundation Repair Association was around, foundation repair industry was how do I put this delicately? I'd call them bottom feeders of the construction industry. Let's put it that way.
I'm glad you're being delicate. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really delicate.
Very nice.
Well,
I'd like to be there when you
most
give people bad
companies
news.
didn't even run company logos on their truck. They'd come out, do a foundation repair, and disappear. And warranties were almost non-existent. If there was a 5-year warranty, that was a good warranty, but coming them out, getting back out there to service that 5-year warranty was next to impossible, 30, 40 years ago. Well, when the Foundation Repair Association started up in Dallas, it kind of brought the industry group together where we were talking with each other and learning what each company does and working together to better the industry. It was working out well up there. So, my brother and my father met and said, let's bring it down to Houston and spread it and bring it into the Houston industry. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is the Dallas market and the Houston market in foundation repair, size-wise, are pretty similar to each other. They almost mirror each other. And it just worked out well to bring it down to Houston and grow, because so much foundation repair was done down here. And it really helped us get together down here and better the industry. And from there, we helped as a family bring it to San Antonio, opened up there. And now we've gone national with the organization. There's always been a member of my family on the board of it since this thing formed. And it's just been a phenomenal help for the industry.
That's great. I love the spirit of service you got in there. Now you stand up for it. But let me ask you: is this time of year? I know there's not the busiest time of year foundation repair. I mean, are we in a cycle, Kenny, for foundations? I know that we go back between the wet seasons and the dry season, the soil expanding and contracting. Is this a time of year that you're not getting a lot of calls? I mean, is this a good time, if I'm concerned, to maybe give you a call and have you come out and look at the foundation and see if maybe it's time to get ahead of what I'm sure is a busier season in the fall?
Yeah, typically, we're all used to hearing the changes in moisture in the soil make the difference in foundation movement. When the soils are dry, they contract and go downward. Well, when we hit midsummer, we may have been dry coming through the first part of summer, like this year. We're a little bit behind on rainfall, but that problem really doesn't hit deeper into the soils where it's affecting foundations till we hit about midsummer and then onward. So normally in August is when my work starts picking up. I'm usually slow the first half of the year, and I do 2/3 of our yearly volume after August. So this is the time of year when it's easiest to get somebody out. When we hit into August and onward on a dry year, we can book out a good ways, and it gets hard. I don't want to bring in new people, inexperienced people, and keep my list down to 2 weeks to get out to see something, because I'd end up putting inexperienced people out there to look at it. It takes about 2 years for me to get someone fully trained to look at a foundation and be accurate with everything on it. So what ends up happening is we end up booking out further. So it's usually, if you're seeing telltale signs now and it's early in the foundation season, it's a good time to get someone out to look at it to make sure it's not going to be a problem.
No, it's you guys have done some spectacular stuff, and just the fact that you don't want to hire someone who's not experienced says a lot in our industry. So appreciate that, Kenny.
Yeah, our big thing and what's kept us in business all these years and as busy as we are is being accurate with what we do and doing the best job we can on every project we take on. So that means the person that's initially out there to look at it, he needs to be very well trained and experienced at what he's looking at and what we're deciding to do on it.
And of course,
I have 30 years experience, Kenny. That means I have 1 year 30 times over. That's what happens out in our industry.
No one told me there'd be math. No one told me there'd be math today. So stop. Enough already. So Kenny, I want to just last week we had Bruce Lessie on from Houston for Lease, and he had this magnificent Iwo Jima mural behind him on the wall. And if anybody wants to see that, you can find it. You can find the last week's show still on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. But in your background there, Kenny, Semper 5 Village behind you there, right?
Oh yeah, that's it. I spent a few years in the Marine Corps, and I enjoyed it very much. Learned a lot of things while I was in there, made a lot of good friends while I was in there.
Well, if I remember correct, Kenny, you were out sitting in foxholes in Kuwait while your brother and father we're having an easy time digging tunnels. Is that right?
Well, let me put it this way. I didn't go into the Marine Corps till I was 24.
Yeah.
I didn't exercise at all from the time I graduated high school till the morning I went into boot camp.
Oh, man.
I was in better shape going into boot camp than I was coming out of boot camp.
Yeah.
Working foundation, repair, and construction. It was a lot of manual labor back then. I've got a lot of equipment now that we use, but it was a lot of flat manual labor then, and I could do more push-ups, more pull-ups, run further and run faster the morning I went into boot camp.
You know, they call it country strong. We used to call it that when I played football. Those guys coming from those farms, man, they were strong, and they never even knew what a weight was. They were pushing wheelbarrows.
Using these?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing was, my family's always been real work orientated. My father didn't come to my high school graduation. He was working. Yeah. But when I graduated boot camp, he came to California to see that, and he said, "Well, how was boot camp?" I said, "It was a piece of cake compared to working for you."
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, any of us who have ever worked for our parents will testify that the toughest boss we ever had is in our upline of our DNA. So no doubt about that. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for being with us here this morning and answering the questions and helping the foundation repair. And of course, you want to get in touch with Kenny, it's easy to do. Just go to HomeShowRadio.com. You can scroll down. We have all our Home Show pros on the home page. And if you go down to the bottom, you see there's Due West. These shuffle all the time, so they may not be in this order, but that's the page. There's a form there. There's a phone number and a link to the website. Kenny, thank you so much again for being with us. Appreciate your time.
Anytime, we appreciate it.
Well, Tom, that's it for this week. I know that you are getting ready to be on the radio this weekend, yes?
I hope so. That would be 9 to 12 on Saturday and 8 to 11 on Sunday.
Good Lord willing, and the transmitter keeps working.
Yeah, and a few other things in this case this weekend, but we'll be all right.
Yeah, well,
we'll make it work.
We'll make it work, yeah, and prayers with your family too, buddy. That'll do it for this week. We will be back again next week. By the way, if you visit HomeShowRadio.com, tomorrow there's going to be a new Home Show video put up featuring Rudy and Rudy's Quality Painting. They're doing a house restoration in the Heights. Tom doesn't know this yet because he hasn't voiced the video yet, but he's going to do it right after we finish doing this show. So just kind of giving you
I might get a little breakfast first, but okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, a little something to eat. Yes.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. I'll join Tom Sunday morning for early edition. Other than that, thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Where's my little button to end this thing? I'm trying to figure. Oh, here it is. All right.
Nice.
Well, I got all these buttons here. I was trying to. Where's the exit? All right. That's it for
right now.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much.